Cool, cool. All right. Everything's rolling. I think we're good. Are you ready to go?
I'm good. Let's do
All
it.
right, let's do this thing. So, hey everybody, Dave here. This is Behind the Brand. Brought to you by DirectLine Media and our famous 60-second video. That's a one-price flat rate video package. Good for those folks who need some video content, want to expand their video content. Fast, simple way to get some great video content for your small business or what have you. Marketing video made simple. Anyway, I have a really great guest here. This is Matt. I'm going to butcher your last name, Matt, so give it to me.
TERRIBILE.
TERRIBILE.
Yes.
Awesome. Matt TERRIBILE, and he's with Acetone Productions. This is a recording studio out in, I want to say, don't tell me. No, it's not that. Why don't you tell me?
Bethany.
Bethany. I knew it was a B. I knew it was a B. Acetone Productions out in Bethany, so thanks, man, for coming out on a Saturday and getting this done.
Oh, my pleasure.
This is cool. I think this is episode 8 we're doing.
Okay,
So
cool.
this is nice. So we're 2 months in. It's pretty
Wow.
good. Yeah, doing all right. Yeah, I do episode a week. We release these every Monday morning, video and audio, about 10 a.m.
Okay.
Premieres. If you check out YouTube, go to DirectLine Media's YouTube page. Anyway, you'll find them there. So it's all good stuff.
Fantastic.
So we are behind the brand. So first of all, I want to dig a little bit into your audio history. So you started this, and I've been to your space, and I love your space. It's very, very cool.
Thank you.
You wouldn't think it'd be a recording studio up there, but you made it work, man, and it looks very cool. So tell us a little bit about kind of moving into that space and what you had to do to get it ready for what it is that you do.
Yeah, so that space, that was an adventure. When we moved in there, we were the first tenants in that upper level in something like 10 years. So we walked into this space, and the walls were just bare sheetrock. So no paint, nothing. Leaks in the ceiling tiles were trash. It was a really not great situation. But we parlayed that into a great deal. The landlord was awesome about helping us get, all that stuff taken care of. We spent probably a week sanding walls, painting, getting all that stuff squared away. My wife and I definitely butted heads about the color.
Yeah.
She won, and it
won,
was
of
the
course.
right call.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even consult my wife on this space. I just,
No, you didn't,
I'm
huh?
doing- no, you might be able to tell.
I could tell.
Hey.
But yeah, so we got it painted. We got all our furniture, all the gear in there. Best workout of my life was carrying all that equipment up a giant flight of stairs.
Wow.
So that was awesome.
Yeah.
Built our vocal booth.
Yep.
And then we opened for business. We had projects lined up starting in March, and we got in there the second week of February.
That's awesome.
So we had about
Wow.
3 weeks to
So
really
you had
get it
client,
going.
you had people lined up before you even, moved in. I mean, you were
Yeah,
a little bit of anxiety going on with that.
A few sleepless nights, a few nights sleeping there. We also didn't have working heat for the first 2 weeks.
Wow.
So in February, it's like 45 degrees in there, and we're trying to paint walls, which didn't work all that well. But we got that fixed. We got it all set up. I had clients lined up. The space has been a long time coming. I've been doing freelance audio engineering for, 10, 12 years.
What type of work, like audio, what would you do? Like, what would that entail?
Yeah, so we work with bands, we work with musicians, we work with solo artists, singer-songwriters, rappers. They come in and record records. So, they come in, we can help them write music, we can help them write their top line, any of that kind of stuff. And then we get it all recorded onto the computer and mixed and mastered and all that. So a lot of these guys I'd known for a long time, and I would just bring them into other people's studios.
Okay.
But it's expensive to do that. So
you would rent out somebody else's studio, but you would engineer it. So
Correct.
You'd just be renting the space then.
Yes.
And the equipment and whatever.
all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So how long in your space now?
It's going on 4 years.
Oh, it's been that long.
Yeah.
Right
yeah.
on.
It's going
Yeah.
on 4 years, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Couldn't ask for better support from our artists and the people that have now, we're on third projects for some of these guys, which is just awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's a few really good recording studios, and I as I said, I've been to your space. I love the sounds that coming out of there. I mean, I know you have a couple of bands that you do, just following you on social and stuff. I see that you do have some returning customers, I guess, clients, bands,
Yeah, yep.
whatever. Do you do other things besides music, or music's really your main thing? Like, like voiceover type work, stuff like that?
We're fully equipped to do voiceover work. We're equipped to do jingles or any of that kind of stuff that we could be asked for. But basically 100% right now is recording music. And then we do some live sound work as well.
Okay. So, would you call yourself a composer? Because I know you had a little bit of experience doing that with me.
I did. We had that project together for the NEC Foundation, which was awesome. Am I a composer by necessity?
Okay.
But not necessarily because it's something I'm particularly great at. For something like that, I would bring in a team. I have a few musicians that I work with that are very talented on multiple instruments, very good with music theory, great composers, and I'd bring them in and give them a concept. I'm a top line writer, so I would write a melody to lyrics that I've come up with. I'll present it to these guys, and they'll fill in the chords. They'll help with the instrumentation, the arrangement, and then we put it all together.
What's a top line? Would you say top line?
Oh
writer?
yeah, top line. Yeah, top line is when you hear a song on the radio, what the lead vocalist is singing. That's your top line melody.
Okay.
So that's one of the more crucial pieces because that's what's going to grab your listener's attention.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what would be the other? Break it down for us. Break down a song, because I'm just curious, actually.
Yeah.
So break down a song, like the different, like you have the top line, and then what else technically is in there to create like your standard rock and roll song or something like that.
Sure. So a standard rock song, I mean, really, you're looking at a few main elements. You've got your rhythm section, which is your guitar, bass, sometimes keys, depending on what the instrumental arrangement is. That's the bedrock, right? So I typically, when I'm arranging a song, I start there. The first thing that I'll do is put together the bedrock underneath whatever top line melody I've written. There are many different schools of thought on how to write a song. So I start with top line melody because I don't play a chorded instrument. So I can't sit there and write a piano progression.
Okay.
You know, I don't know how to play it. So
okay.
I write top line melody first with lyrics. Then I build a rhythm section because I'm a drummer, so I know how to do that.
Yeah.
And then I bring my guys in and we'll put together the chord structure, which is based on me singing to the best of my ability what the top line is that I've written.
Okay.
They'll fill in the chords underneath. So then we've got the foundation, which is that rhythm section, the chorded instruments, the guitars, pianos, whatever we're using there, the top line melodies on top of that, and that's your main components of the song. And then we'll add things like guitar solos or other instruments. We might put some horns in there, some strings in there, some synths, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And those are just kind of the extra things that get added in.
Because you hear, these interviews with these musicians. They're like, "How'd you write that song?" Well, I was doing this riff, and it all came out of this riff. Like, it's like this. You got this riff, and then we just built our song around it. I mean, so is that common?
Yes,
that's very common.
Guitar players have it easy. Okay. So, you come up with a riff, you come up with a chord progression. They may not be a great singer, but if you can write a chord progression and kind of come up with a melody in your head that you like, you've got a song.
Yeah.
You listen to guys like Bob Dylan or Neil Young, not the greatest vocalists in the world, but they write amazing songs.
They write amazing songs, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, so my wife and I had this thing. She's like, can't you hear these lyrics? Aren't they beautiful? I was like, I'm kind of listening to the rhythm. Like, I'm in, that's kind of my thing. I like kind of getting into the groove. So if there's a really good rhythm that's just kind of grooving, I mean, for me, that really care. I mean, I'm Allman Brothers fan, so
yep.
That's, that sort of really carries a song for me. And then for me, so what grabs me first is the rhythm, that kind of thing, and then I'll start moving it. Very rarely do the lyrics grab a song for me first, or the top line, I guess. Usually it's the rhythm section that gets me.
Well, there's a science to that, because most of what's going on in that rhythm section, you're dealing in a lot of the lower frequency areas. You can literally feel them. You can feel a kick drum.
Yeah.
And that tends to grab most people first.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's the top line. It's like, oh, I kind of like that melody. That's really catchy. And then sometimes it's the lyrics, or sometimes it's a really cool guitar riff. It depends on the person.
Yeah. I mean, you look at a band like Led Zeppelin, right? I mean, I don't know how they did it. It's like, everybody has these theories like, well, they had a contract with the devil or whatever. But I think it's just their kind of groove. They have that sort of, it just works together, this rhythm, and then it's all really one cohesive piece, which is I don't think there's been a band like Led Zeppelin since Led Zeppelin. You know?
Well, the thing now is we can do so much with computers that, unfortunately, we don't need a band like Led Zeppelin.
That's unfortunate, I think.
And my artist friends will crucify me for that. But the bottom line is they did it with tape, man. There was no, punching in and out and, doing that with some poor intern spending an hour cutting analog tape and gluing it and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Bands like Zeppelin or Queen or, these guys had to be A-plus musicians.
Yeah.
There was no pitch correction.
Yeah.
At least not in the form that we think of it today.
Sure.
There was no, computer created samples. These guys had to know how to make that sound, and the engineers had to know how to pick it up.
Yeah.
And today, I mean, you could take a laptop and be riding the subway and write the next beat for the next pop anthem that's going to come out. It's incredible.
How does that affect your business, good, bad, or otherwise? That kind of thing, like somebody able to pull out their laptop, whip up, like Apple, what do they have? Whatever the heck.
GarageBand,
that kind of thing. So how does that affect you?
As a business owner, more negative than positive.
Okay.
The thing with that is that as soon as somebody gets a laptop and an interface, they build themselves and market themselves as a recording engineer. Mm-hmm. But there's so much more that goes into being a recording engineer other than having a laptop and an interface. So when I'm competing with guys that are set up that way, they can charge absurdly low rates and record vocalists over a backing track that I can't touch. Yeah. And even though I've got better equipment and a lot of knowledge about how to mix it and make it sound right, when somebody's putting out there $15 or $20 an hour for studio time,
yeah, you can't touch that.
We can't touch that.
Yeah.
So it hurts from that standpoint. Yeah. But that also works in my favor because I do end up with quite a few clients that start with somebody like that.
I was going right there. I was like, this is where he's going. Yeah, absolutely.
And they realize the limitations. And if they're serious about their music, they realize that they need to take another step, in order to meet those quality standards that we see in the industry now. Yeah. As a creative and as an artist, I love it because we get people like Billie Eilish, who composed a 5 Grammy-winning album. I think it was 5 she won in a bedroom. And it's incredible the creativity that allows access to. So as a business owner, I'm not wild about it, but as an artist, I think it's great.
That's cool. So it maybe it benefits more of the artist because it's just another tool, right? For the tool bag. They want to create the sound and they kind of get in there and they figure out how to do it and they do it. And
right. And they can do it inexpensively.
Yeah.
Because the alternative, back in the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, was these massive synthesizers that were analog, that were crazy expensive, and you had to patch all sorts of inputs and outputs, and now you can dial it up on a computer and not have to have a lot of the technical knowledge and make something sounds cool.
How does your technically? How do you do it? So you got your instrument and you plug in where? Break that down for us.
Sure. So it depends on the instrument. I am a little old school in that I prefer to mic as much as I can. So if I've got, say, a guitar player, we've got a few options in the studio. The first option is we plug their guitar right into the ramp. They dial in the tone that they use, that they love. Sometimes I'll make some tweaks to that based on how I need it to fit into the mix with the other instruments. Then we'll mic up their guitar cabinet, run that through our console. We use an analog console at Acetone. And then bring it from there into our recording device or any outboard gear that we're going to use. And then once it's in the recording device, which we use Universal Audio Apollo interfaces, what that does is converts that analog sound wave coming in to digital that the computer can understand.
Okay.
And then that tracks into the recording software. But they could also plug their guitar directly into the Apollo interface. We can dial up a simulated amp in a piece of software and skip the whole microphone thing altogether and just go direct.
Why use a microphone as opposed to just plugging right in? Because obviously plugging right in would probably be a little bit easier, less time. You just plug in, you dial some stuff in, you're good to go. So why a microphone?
So definitely easier and faster to go direct. I am still of the mindset that the simulated technology still hasn't completely captured what tubes and transistors and capacitors can do inside of an amp. So there's a sense of air and heaviness to a guitar tone that you get when you're using a real amp that you don't get when you're using something direct in. And for the guitar player, they expect their amp to react in certain ways that generates their tone. An example of that is Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits.
Yep.
The way he makes his guitar sound is because of the way the guitar feels playing through that amp. And if you take the amp out of the equation, they don't get that same feel.
And I guess playing through a different amp, whether it be a Marshall or, I don't know, any other amp out there, Marshall just pops into mind because
Sure,
it's everywhere.
it's on everything. Yeah.
You know, it must sound different. I guess there's different models within each line too. So each amp would sound a little bit different.
You could take two Marshall JCM 800s, put them next to each other, and they would sound a little different.
Really? Okay.
That's the beauty of analog, is that sometimes there's just, a certain set of tubes that were just a little bit different, but they throw them in the amp, and it makes the amp sound different than the same production line made 6 months later.
So these are tube-driven amps.
A lot are.
A lot are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They still make. What about? Is there digital amps?
So there are. There's an amp system by a company called Kempler, and it's all digital. So you have incredible control over what this thing sounds like. It can look like a traditional guitar amp. It's size of a lunchbox, a little bigger, but it's got all the knobs and everything on it. But it's all digital profiles, so you don't need an amp per se. You could plug into that thing. It can dial up limitless possibilities for amp sounds.
Okay.
So phenomenal piece of hardware.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. You said it's the size of a lunchbox, so it's smaller, so it's a little more portable.
And there's no tubes in it, so it's not heavy.
So it's not heavy. It's crazy. Now you said you plug into an analog console. Is there digital consoles out there, and what's the difference?
So an analog console, digital console. I mean, they're similar in the sense that I use them. A true analog console is going to be like your old Neve stuff, which was a lot of that was tube based. Your solid state consoles like SSL, those are still out there. They're still in studios, and they're ridiculously expensive and very hard to come by.
Okay.
I use what was actually more designed as a live sound board, but I love the preamps that are in it. Okay. So I use that. We use a Soundtrax Topaz Project 8. They were really popular in the 80s and 90s.
Okay.
But there's no digital conversion in them. So that's why we have to run through a patch bay and go into our Apollo interfaces. But there are digital boards that have the capability to output directly to a computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And the analog, what is it? Just like a more natural sound? I mean, because maybe, do you think for the regular person like me, the regular music fan, would they be able to tell, like, if you were to have all the settings the same and record this band or vocals or guitar, into a digital amp and then into an analog amp, is that something side by side or one after the other we could tell the difference?
Probably not.
Okay.
For your average everyday listener, I mean, the big thing you're listening for in that situation is analog sound waves. Analog sound lives in the world of harmonics, right? So when you sing a note or you strum a guitar chord or you hit a snare drum, an analog system is going to capture that and all of the little harmonics, which are notes in different parts of the frequency range that are associated with that main note that you've played. When you're in the digital world, a lot of times the digital software has to simulate that, and it's not always as natural when you're using a math equation to figure it out as it is when you're just capturing the acoustics and passing that right through with what the instrument's doing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. That's cool. I want to move on now to Acetone.
Sure.
How'd you come up with that name?
So we tossed around a few different ideas. The name for us was important because once we picked it, there's really no going back. Like you pick your name and that's what your name's going to be, especially once you file all that paperwork.
Yeah. Are you an LLC?
We are.
You are. Okay.
Yeah, we're an LLC.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
So few different ideas were getting tossed around. I wanted to use a name called Sonic Hero. My wife shot that down. She said, Matt, it's too long. It's got to be something short, sweet, that describes what we do. Ace signifies you're good at what you do. You're the best at what you do.
Yeah.
Tone signifies what you work with.
Yeah.
And productions are what you make.
That's cool.
So it was a very, and I looked at her and I said, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's a cool name.
It makes sense. It works.
Yeah, definitely a cool name. And so your wife came up with that name then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What was the other ones?
Sonic Heroes.
I mean, you got the Sonic because it's
Yeah.
sound. Hero because why heroes? What was your? I got an idea, but what was your take on heroes?
Sure. Yeah. So my original take was I wanted to rescue your average everyday musician from the clutches of bedroom studios and ridiculously overpriced facilities,
Nice.
and show them that there was an alternative. So that was kind of where I was going.
Okay. Is that still your target?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. It's very important to me, more so as a musician than a business owner, but I feel like Connecticut has a whole bunch of really inexpensive recording studios, and then it has a handful of top-notch, phenomenal recording studios. And the difference in price could be, $20 an hour to $250 an hour,
Yeah, crazy.
depending on where you're going. And for most musicians, getting into those studios is just not feasible.
Yeah.
But they want something a little better than what the dude in his bedroom with a laptop is going to give them.
Yeah.
So I appeal to those musicians. I feel that every musician should have the right and the capability to hear their music professionally recorded.
Yeah.
It's just it's like your baby. You put so much into your music, you want it to sound good. So that's what our mission is.
Do you record? Kind of backing up a little bit. Do you record the whole band all at once? Do you record maybe the vocals and the guitar, then the drums? And if you're going to do it separately,
Yep.
Which track do you record first? Like which instrument?
So we can do either way. It depends on the band. One of our longtime clients is the John Spignesi band. They're out of Brantford. They prefer to play all together at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
they're a jam band, right?
Yeah.
So we mic up the drums, we put the guitar amp in the vocal booth, the keyboards we run direct. We set up a scratch vocal mic, and they do the whole recording together. And then we'll just punch in to fix a chord here or there if we need to. But essentially everything happens, it gets tracked at once.
And then you record the vocals after.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We overdub all the vocal work. And if there's any percussion, shakers, tambourines, hand drums, any of that stuff, we'll put that in after.
You put it in after. Would you like to record the vocals at the same time, or it's just not practical? You don't have why do you do it after?
So it's certainly practical and possible to do it at the same time. And I do record that live vocal take as he's going through the song. The reason that it doesn't end up typically getting kept is because once the singer listens to it, they're not usually thrilled with that first take anyway.
Gotcha.
So they typically want to overdub it, and if the rest of the instrumental tracks are fantastic, there's no reason to make the whole band play the whole song again.
Okay, so he'll just go back and listen to it, and then just sing along.
Right.
Gotcha.
But a lot of the metal bands I work with, they go the other way. They want to
Okay.
multi-track everything out because they want everything to be perfect and
Yeah.
rudimented. And so in a situation like that, we'll either record a scratch track for the drummer to play to, or the drummer will just play along to a metronome and know the song well enough to know what he's got to do.
That's always blown my mind, right? That a drummer would just be able to play a song, a 3 to 4, 5 minute song, all by himself.
Yes,
'cause,
absolutely.
That's just, I know it's an instrument and there's certain things, but it's always been, amazing to me that that he'll just play the song. He'll just know it. I mean, that probably sounds stupid to a lot of drummers out there, but I'm like, that's very cool. You can just play the song.
As a drummer, I can say this, right? The common joke is that, the drummers aren't the musicians in the band. But a lot of times, the drummer knows exactly what he hits, and he hits the same thing every time when they play the song,
Yeah,
right?
true.
It is difficult. It's hard sometimes to keep that same feel and that same passion to the take when you're playing to just a click track in your ear. But again, that rhythm section, that's the foundation. It's got to be perfect.
Because
So-
you're the rhythm.
Yeah.
Do you listen? Do you know the track? Are you listening to the guitars in your head as you're playing the song, as you're drumming the song?
For anything I've ever recorded for bands that I've been in or anything like that, I usually had a hand in writing the song, so I know it well enough, and that click track starts, and
And you got it.
I hear the guitars in my head, and I just play.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good stuff. So, what are the colors of your studio, and why did your wife think that would be the appropriate colors?
So my wife has a background in photography. She's very visually
What's your wife's
oriented.
name?
Mary Kate.
Mary Kate.
Yeah, yeah. She's very visually oriented. I'm not.
Okay.
So I wanted originally like a deep cranberry red.
Okay.
And I thought it would just create this kind of warm, down to earth environment. And Mary Kate explained to me in about 12 different ways why I was wrong.
Okay.
So we went back and forth and back and forth, and we settled on a marigold yellow.
Okay.
Which is what the majority of the studio is. And it's a very warm yellow, almost kind of like an orange, kind of getting into the orange family.
Yeah.
But it just creates a really lively and fun feeling when people walk in.
Yeah.
And it lends itself to being a creative space. And looking back on it, considering that everybody that comes in is like, wow, I love the color in here, which just reminds me again, that I was wrong, which is fine.
Yeah.
But
no, it is a cool color because it still has that sort of warm,
yeah,
feel good wrap around thing. But at the same time, it's very bright and conducive to kind of getting you going and
right.
feeling good and happy and creative juices kind of thing going.
Yeah, and our green room is actually green. So
nice.
we have it's like an olive green that we did on 2 of the accent walls just to break it up a little bit. And that's the area where the couches are, where people kind of relax waiting for their next take. So it worked out really well for that. And then we did all the trim work in a gold. It's meant to look like hammered gold.
Okay.
It's a spray paint we picked up, I think at Home Depot or something.
Okay.
And it's like a hammered gold. So it looks really cool. It's got some depth and dimension to it. We did all the trim work in that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you do on a daily basis to sort of promote the studio, promote Acetone Productions? Like you get up in the morning, probably one of the first things that runs through your head is like, all right, what am I doing today? Like I got this band coming in, whatever, but you always have to like look ahead. So sort of what do you do day to day to kind of keep your brand, vibrant and relevant, I guess, in the music industry?
So that's the thing that makes me lose sleep at night, right? Mm-hmm. Is how do I continue to attract artists? How do I continue to keep my brand out there and make sure that my brand stands for the things that I want it to stand for? That's always the hardest thing. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm scanning through emails. I'm looking for any opportunity I can find. There's a bunch of Connecticut music forums. So I'll scour those in the morning and just see if anybody's looking for anything, any studios, any of that kind of stuff.
Every morning you're kind of opening up the paper,
yeah.
if you will.
Well, the studios in Connecticut are hungry. Yeah. Most of the studios in the state are run by great guys and girls, and they're looking for the next project just like I am. Yeah. So sometimes the early bird gets the worm. It's the person that jumps on it first.
Yeah, gotcha.
But we do a little bit of marketing. So I'll check, like our rates on Google Ads. Yep. We run some Google AdWords and things like that. So I'll look and see what we've gotten for clicks, how long they've spent on different pages of the website, looking through those analytics to help me improve the website. Yeah. And then it's a lot of referral stuff too. So I'm reaching out to my artists. Hey, how's your release going? Has anybody been asking about where you've gotten it done? A lot of that kind of stuff too. And I do an incentive program for my artists where they get free studio time for referring other artists to me.
How does, now with the digital, you release, tell me how you release. So this will kind of start this question off. So obviously there's CD and then there's iTunes and then there's Google, right? Do they have stuff? There's Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me, how do you release? Where does your music go for most artists?
So most artists, I should say every artist does digital releasing at this point. Okay. There's multiple ways to do that. There's sites like CD Baby, TuneCore, DistroKid, where you upload your music to this one service, you pay them a fee, and they upload it to all its streaming platforms. Okay. So you'll be on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, all the different streaming platforms that are out there. There's hundreds of them now. Yeah. So that digital release bundle gets you on all of those. That's the most inexpensive way to do a release because you have no physical content.
Does it like Spotify? Do you pay a fee?
Nope.
Okay. So
in fact, Spotify pays you as your music gets streamed.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
So let's say you just do that full digital release. There's no CD because on a CD you have liner notes, and then you could put your brand. You can put produced by, right, so on and so forth. And I've tried to find that information, like on iTunes when I'm listening. So that's cool. Where was this done? And it's, I don't know, maybe I'm not looking hard enough. Where can somebody find that information if they hear you know, like the was it John Spignesi band?
Yeah.
They want to know where it was produced, you know, and they're on Apple iTunes. Is there a way to find that information?
So there is. Most of the streaming sites have an area that you can click in that like expands. So if you think of YouTube, if you're watching a YouTube video, there's a little down arrow on the bottom right. You click on that, it gives you a drop down.
Yep.
So for example, on YouTube, a lot of times liner notes will appear there. But I'm really at the mercy of the artists, because if they don't, when they're uploading, if they don't fill in that information, it's not going to show up anywhere.
So they upload. So you give them the track, and they're responsible for uploading. Do you upload? Do you ever just say, "Hey, Matt, I want you to take care of everything"? Would you do that?
I will assist them, but I won't do it myself,
Okay.
because there is information required when you're setting those up. Licenses that they have to agree to, saying that,
Gotcha.
for example, the music is original, and if it's not, they've procured the proper licenses. As well as bank account information for where royalties should be deposited, all that kind of stuff. I don't want the responsibility of having to maintain any of that information or secure any of that info. But I will help them if they want to come in and say, hey, you know, just help me through this so I understand what I'm doing. I'm happy to do that part for them.
Nice. So you said you get a lot of referrals and stuff. What is the scene as far as the music scene in Connecticut with bands, new bands coming up, solo artists?
Yep.
Is this something that's really growing? Is there really, I mean, I know some parts, I know Middletown, for instance, they seem like they have a kind of a cool music scene. And where's sort of it happening? Where are the artists in Connecticut coming from? Are they mostly in Connecticut, or are you getting some folks out of state?
Pretty much everybody I work with is Connecticut-based. Connecticut's got an amazing music scene. The problem is that nobody goes to live shows to see it. So I wish, if there's anything that I can pass along to people listening to the podcast, get out there, go see that band playing at your favorite bar on Saturday night. These musicians are incredibly talented and very diverse. We've got an amazing country music scene in Connecticut. We've got multiple different styles of rap and hip hop that really can change based on what city the performer's from.
Interesting.
You know, a rapper coming out of Bridgeport has a completely different feel than a rapper coming out of Hartford. It can vary that much by just what city they're hailing from. We've got an amazing metal scene. There's a ton of metal bands in Connecticut. The pop punk scene that was huge in the early 2000s is coming back.
Okay.
So there's some great music there. And then there's tons of people that are just singer-songwriters that cover all sorts of different genres in one package. So it's really an awesome scene.
That's great. Yeah, no, we try to get out, my wife and I, when we can. And we found that Middletown's a fun place to go. Sometimes we head down to the shoreline.
A lot of great stuff. Bradford, Madison. Yeah.
No, so that's really good. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about kind of the day-to-day. You check your Google Analytics. What are some of the things you're looking for when you're looking for that? Like, you know, how long people stay on a page? Mm-hmm. Are you curious where they're going on your website? Yeah,
that's all really important. So I like seeing how long they've spent on the website. If I see that they just went to the homepage, then that makes me wonder, okay, is my menu system laid out well enough where they can understand how to get to different things? So is there something I need to change there? If I see that they've gone from the homepage to recording packages, they're looking right at the pricing. So if they stop there, then I start thinking, okay, well, is there a budget issue? Did they look at the price and say, I just can't afford that? Or are they just shopping it compared to other studios? A lot of studios don't put their pricing on their websites.
Yeah. Same with video folks.
Yeah, a lot of folks don't, you know, it's project-based. They don't put it on the website.
Yeah.
I do, because I feel like in a studio, there shouldn't be hidden costs in the music studio.
It's interesting, you know, I'm glad you brought that up. So in the video world, everybody kept that a secret. Like what I mean, there was, you know, kind of standard rates for a camera op for the day and stuff like that. But when you're putting together a whole production, the price can vary greatly. And I have a product on my website that I disclose the price. I don't know if any other production companies do this, but I say this is what it costs. And I think the music industry as well as the video industry is changing in that regard, that people are becoming so much more educated. They say they get a laptop, they open it up, maybe they're an artist and they want to record something in their bedroom, and they do that. And ultimately, like, that may take away that initial record for you, but they're going to say, all right, I'm making a little bit of a dent, whether it be my music or my video. Like, people are recognizing I'm getting to that next level,
Right.
so I need something better. So I think it's helpful where they find you, they go, they see that price, however it's laid out. I think you have a pretty straightforward pricing structure, so it's not confusing. And they go in, it's like, that's it, I'm in. And I think the video industry is changing that too. It's like, it's not like video is almost not an option anymore. It's sort of like, if you have a business, you have to have it.
Right.
But you don't want to deal with like, oh, and I got to talk to this guy. He's going to talk to me. He's going to try to sell me all this other nonsense. And you just want to avoid that. Like, this, you're going to get this, and it's going to cost this much.
Right.
And I think that's kind of how your pricing structure is, if I remember correctly. You want this, and you're going to get this. And if there's extra things that you need, it's kind of all right there. Is that sort of how you do it? And do you find that's been helpful in obtaining clients?
I do, and that is how I do it. I price things. I have a daily rate, and I have a per song rate for mixing and mastering and post-production work. That's all laid out right on the price page. I also offer some standard packages. So, for example, I have an EP package, which gives an artist 16 hours of studio time, mixing and mastering work for 3 songs at a price point of like $750.
Oh, okay. And so an EP would be 3 songs.
Yeah, an
Okay.
EP could be any number of songs, really.
Okay.
There's not really an industry standard that says it's got to be this many. That dates back from the analog record days where you could only fit so much
Gotcha.
music on a vinyl.
Sure. Gotcha.
But yeah, so that's a great package for a band. They come in, 16 hours is typically enough to get 3 songs done.
Yep. That's usually split, into 2 days maybe?
Yeah, 2 days,
Okay.
2-3 days.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times we'll do a weekend for all the instrumentals, and then they'll come back on a weeknight and hammer out the vocals.
Nice. Okay.
And I have some bigger packages too for larger scale projects. But I do that because it helps people conceptualize, okay, if I want to put out an album, what is this going to cost me? And if I say right on my website, listen, for $1,500, you can come in, you'll get, 32 hours to do 8 songs. And it includes your mixing and mastering, all your post-production time, the whole 9 yards.
Soup to nuts. They get
Soup to
everything.
nuts. And then you got a band of 4 guys. They say, okay, well, we know it's going to be $1,800, $1,500. We divide that by the number of guys in the band. If there's 5 guys in the band, all right, we're each in it for $300.
Yeah.
And then you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's completely doable. For a lot of bands.
And that's what I want people to say when they see
Yeah.
the pricing. And if they go over, they get a little bit of a discount.
Sure.
On the hourly rate. If they go over, I've got a flat rate. If they want to add songs to any package, they could pay $200 and add an extra song to the package.
Gotcha.
And then I'll do custom packages in between. So if somebody says, well, I want to do 10 songs, but I'm a singer-songwriter and I need studio musicians, and then it's a little more custom because
Sure.
there's different factors that come into play there. I can't just put on the website and say it's this price.
Yeah.
But my goal with that package pricing was to make it easy for a musician to look at and say, you know what? Yeah, like I can do that.
Let's just do it.
And then
Yeah.
we do payment plans. So they just
Yeah,
make payments as we
perfect.
work the project.
Nice.
Everybody's happy.
What's the time to turn something around like that? So this guy he wants the EP. Let's start there. He wants the EP package. He wants to record. Okay, there's time. 4 weeks from now we can record. That's the next available studio space. Whatever. I'm making that up.
Yep.
So they do all the recording. When can they expect a finished product?
I go by release schedule. That's what I shoot for. So one of the things that I speak with bands about before we start is, when do you want to put this thing out?
Okay.
Because we've got to leave room for the mixing and mastering. We've got to leave room for revisions. If anybody's got revisions for the mix that they want. So if somebody tells me, for example, I have an artist releasing an album April 20th. The album was tracked through the month of February. I just finished mixing it. I sent the files to him last night, so he's going to go through and listen to those for a week or two. If he's happy with everything, he's going to upload it right to the streaming platform for an April 20th release.
Nice.
If he's not, he'll send it back to me and say, on song 3, timestamp 1 minute and 42 seconds, bring that vocal up a little bit.
Okay.
Or, whatever changes he might want.
So it would be just at that point, it'd just be some minor
tweaks.
post-production stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing, no re-recording, because that would
Right. Very rarely do we have to re-record something. When we do a tracking session in the studio, I like to do a final listen through with the artist and say, okay, are you happy with the take? Is there anything in there that needs to be fixed? Did you miss any chords? We'll listen through for all that stuff because it's much easier to fix that right there than to have to get them back in.
Sure, I gotcha.
So to answer your question about turnaround time, depends on the release schedule. I've had people call me in November and say, I want to release this January 1st, and it's a 10-track album. And my response to that is, okay, how's your availability? Because we need to get you in
now,
tomorrow,
right.
And get this thing turned around.
Yeah.
I can mix an album probably a week and a half, because my process is I mix the songs, I put them down for a few days, I go back to them with fresh ears. Do I still like them? I make my tweaks. I listen to them on a bunch of different sound systems before I even send them to the artist. So I could get it mixed in probably about a week and a half. Revisions take as long as the artist takes to get back to me.
Gotcha.
Final revisions within a couple of days.
Gotcha. Have you ever had a band comes to you and they kind of have like a demo? It's like, I want to be, and you listen to it, you're like, I don't know if I want to record
that. Has that happened? Yes.
Okay.
The approach that I take with that is I talk to the band about the song specifically. I look at what they're trying to accomplish with the song. And if that means maybe we've got to change around some of their top line writing, maybe we need to change the arrangement in the song. Maybe there's no reason for a shredding guitar solo that lasts 2.5 minutes.
Sure.
Not that there's ever not a reason for a shredding guitar solo, but you get what I'm saying. What I'll try to do is help them rebuild the songs a little bit.
Okay.
And, of course, what comes into play there is their openness to that process.
Yeah.
Because there are some musicians that don't want your input. They want you to just hit the record button and make it sound good.
How do you feel about that? Because if being an artist, a producer, right? There's an artistry that goes into that, definitely. And if a band comes in and says, we want it this way. And whether it be technically or just, the genre of the music that's really kind of not what's there, and it's just maybe they want to do a little twist on it, but it's just whatever. You really want to sort of push. I think you don't want to change a song, but you need to steer it in the right direction because ultimately, right, that's your name on the label.
Yeah.
So if you say okay, whatever you say, and then it's released, and it's like, who produced that? I don't like that. But you're like, well, you can't go to the people listening and say, well, that's what they wanted.
Right. I can't put an end user agreement that says, the music represented does not necessarily constitute the, I can't do that. So
you really, being nice, I guess, about it. It's like, you how do you explain that to a band who's really sort of, or an artist? It's like, no, this is how it has to be. How do you kind of break through that? Be like, I understand, but.
So that's a really slippery slope.
Yeah.
And when you hear about people having bad studio experiences, many cases are because of an engineer who is not handling that conversation well. So for me, first of all, it's always respectful. I'm never going to say to a band, look, guys, you just aren't very good. I don't want to work with you.
Right. No, you wouldn't want to say that.
Would never say that. Not good for business.
Sure.
Also makes me sound like a jerk. So wouldn't say that. But typically, if it's a concept thing, for example, if they're going for a certain sound that defines them as a band and I don't like that sound or I don't think it'll be commercially successful, I may say to them, this song's a little outside the box. Is that what you're going for? And if they say yes, I'm not going to fight them on a creative decision.
Okay, gotcha.
Where I will stand my ground is if they want to do something that from a technical standpoint will make the mix sound bad, that's where I'll stand my ground. So, for example, if they want to put a crazy overdriven effect on their bass, but that crazy overdriven effect is going to make it so that you can't hear the kick drum or you can't hear the guitars. And no matter what I do to mix around it, it's just not going to sonically work.
Right.
Then I would say to the artist, let's tweak that sound a little bit because I've got to make sure that, number one, we can hear that clearly, but we can also hear everything else going on in the mix clearly. And when I approach it from that angle, I haven't had anybody who wasn't receptive to that.
Okay.
They understand that in the studio, it's a little different than live. Live sound is pretty forgiving. But in the studio, it's not.
Sure.
If you put something out that sounds like garbage, it's not going to make it onto the streaming platforms because they have certain requirements for what sonically the mixes do.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So streaming platforms, if you put out something that isn't, I guess, mixed well, they could reject it?
Or alter it. So,
Oh, really?
So Spotify, well, they all do this. I won't single Spotify out, but they have minimum and maximum loudness requirements for the masters. So if I send Spotify something that's too quiet, Spotify is going to either let it stay too quiet, and then the listeners, it's going to be weird because they're going to have to turn their stereo system up when they're listening to it. Or some of the streaming platforms will boost it.
Okay.
But the problem is when they boost it, they use a pretty harsh limiter that will kill the dynamics of the song. So that's bad.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you send it too loud, they're going to squash it so that it's volume-wise in conformity with all the other songs that are on the service, which again results in crushing your dynamics and the song not sounding as good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're more concerned about really more of an engineer standpoint.
Yes.
Is making sure that all the pieces fit together properly.
Correct. I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer by trade and a producer by necessity.
Gotcha. Great.
They're two very different jobs.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm worried about the technical aspect. I'm not going to comment on the musical direction of your song unless you want me to.
Okay.
Because that's your baby. That's what you guys have decided as a band that you want to do. Where I do have to comment is making sure that it sounds good and that your listeners enjoy what they're hearing.
Okay.
That's where I
So
step
technically sounds good.
Yes.
So, okay. And then the rest of it is up to personal preference.
Right. I have some artists. I'm working with a very talented singer-songwriter right now who came in and said, Matt, these are acoustic demos of all my songs. I want full band arrangements, but I don't know what they should sound like. So can you help me make this happen? And in a situation like that, I get to put my producer hat on, and
Cool.
we call in some studio musicians that are good writers, and we build it from the ground up.
You like doing that kind of work?
I do.
Okay.
It brings with it its own stresses, which is I don't want to let the artist down. So if they don't like what I've come up with, how can I make sure that we come to something that they're happy with?
Yeah.
Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet, but there's always a possibility that it could. But it's also a lot of fun. It's my creative outlet. I don't get to write a lot of music anymore. I don't have the time. So that's where I get to kind of get my creative release.
Yeah. When do you record mostly? Like nighttime, during the week, weekends? When's your
Nights and weekends, because most of these guys have full-time jobs.
Okay.
So for them, sure, they might love to come in at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, but realistically, they got to come after work.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of nights in Saturdays and Sundays.
Which is nice. Leaves you nice windows to do all the posts.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yep.
Yeah. You have anybody helping you out?
I do. I've got a great team, and I couldn't speak more highly of them. So my wife, Mary Kate, does a lot of photography work for our clients.
Nice.
So she'll do press kit photos, headshots, things like that. I've got Scott, a guy named Scott McNamee, who's my assistant engineer. Scott does a lot of the tracking work.
Okay.
And he plays 18 instruments.
Holy cow. How many instruments do you play?
I'm a drummer.
Okay.
And I can sing a little bit.
Okay, that's it, huh? Oh, nice.
Scott is a great singer.
That's cool.
He plays keys, bass, basically anything with strings he can play.
Okay.
With the exception he doesn't play violin, but
Okay.
anything else
Amazing.
he can. So Scott's a great all-purpose guy because he can come in and run a session.
Yeah.
But he can also come in and lay down your bass track. He's been playing bass for 20-something years, and
Okay.
he teaches it. So that would be his main instrument.
Nice.
But he does amazing work on keys, on guitar. I mean, anything you need, he can do. Yeah. I then have my intern from last year is a guy named Steve, who he graduates from Mercy this year, and he's going to be coming on as an assistant engineer. Again, another multi-instrumentalist. He's a drummer. He's a bass player. Very talented engineer. So he'll be running tracking sessions and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So those two guys are kind of like my right-hand team in terms of in the studio working. And then I'm blessed to have probably 8 or 10 studio musicians that I can call anytime and say, hey, I need strings, I need an upright bass, I need, trumpets, I need whatever.
Yeah.
and these guys come through for me.
What's your favorite music to record? Maybe rock and roll, folk, classical, what, jazz? Do you do any jazz?
I have not done much jazz. Not because I haven't wanted to, just because the opportunity hasn't presented itself. I would say my personal favorite, I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s. I love that pop rock, emo stuff.
Okay, cool.
I have a soft spot for it, so when I get to work with those bands, I'm right at home. I also have listened to more country music in the last 3 years than I ever thought I would.
So you get a lot of country guys.
I get a ton of country guys.
No kidding.
Yeah. I get a ton.
My daughter's big into country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She, which is great. I'm not a big country fan. There's some. But country, I remember my dad's country music.
Yeah, very different than
It's
today's.
very different than today's country. I mean, it's a whole different thing.
Country's bled into pop. It's
Yeah,
basically
it
the
really
same, very, very similar. You look at crossover artists like Taylor Swift and even Florida Georgia Line, and you've got rappers rapping over country tracks. I mean, it's
you do.
pretty incredible
Yeah, you do.
what that industry has become.
It's really kind of it's really mainstream now. Country has
Absolutely.
really made it to the mainstream when it was just sort of this obscure, I guess Southern, Western, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, and
thing.
it's bled into folk significantly.
Yeah.
So I work with an artist who country backgrounds, but really writes in more of a folk perspective. So it's kind of like if you think of the band Mumford and Sons.
Yep.
But a little bit less English.
Okay.
A little more American, but and even the Christian music scene in Connecticut is huge.
Yeah.
So I work with artists in that.
Yeah, there's two WCCC.
Yep.
Yeah, they went Christian. I don't know what their call letters are now. And there's another station, I was on social or something, I just saw, it's like, today's our last day. Thanks everybody for listening to our hard rock, but we're going Christian tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge
Which is fine,
industry.
but yeah, it's just, yeah. So now iRock Radio, now CCC is now, the guys went to iRock Radio, which is over at, what is it, CSB? You familiar with iRock Radio?
No.
Yeah, so they went, the guys, there was really a one person in particular, I can't think of his name. Anybody listening to this might know, but he was a big WC DJ. He was like a daytime DJ over there.
Oh, okay.
And he didn't want to let it die in Connecticut, so he did this online thing. They have a really nice studio at CSB in Farmington. They broadcast out of there.
Oh, wow.
They have live DJs. They come in. It's just like a regular radio station. You just stream it. Yeah, so it's
Wow, that's cool.
iRock Radio. Yeah, it's very cool. And they still do a lot of sponsoring. Matter of fact, there's a band coming to the Webster Theater in Hartford. Rival Sons. You ever hear of Rival Sons?
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Rival Sons. Yeah.
We saw them once in, my wife and I, we saw them at Mohegan Sun. I think it was Mohegan. They have the Wolf Den. Is it the Wolf Den? Mohegan?
Yeah, the free venue.
The free venue. I think that's where it was. We were right there, like, oh my God, what a show. These guys were killer. So now they're coming to the Webster Theater in Hartford.
Oh, that's cool.
iRock Radio's sponsoring it, I guess, or promoting it, or whatever they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's very cool. So like, he's keeping the, keeping it alive.
Somebody has to.
Yeah, somebody has to. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, Christian's all good and everything, but we got to keep some of that hard rock going.
We do, and thankfully, there's a lot of those bands in Connecticut too.
Yeah. How do we discover new music? Right? Stupid question. But you used to go to the record store, then the CD store, and you would sit there, you'd walk around for an hour or two, whatever, you're flipping through and you see the cool album cover, or maybe you heard about it, you can, and then when CDs came out, you have all the listening stations, and then, they put on their record that they like, the owner, and you could listen to that and buy it. I find, because I still like buying full albums.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's digital, I'll go to iTunes and I'll like a song, I just buy the whole thing.
Sure.
One, because I just want to hear what else they have.
Yep.
And I figure it's support the artist, right? They built an album to go together a certain way. Let's buy the whole thing. So, but with radio sort of just being classic rock now, right? You got classic rock radio, you got the Christian stuff, and then you got pop and rap stuff. I'm not a big pop rap guy, but where do you find the new rock and roll?
Yeah.
Like, that's my question to you after that rambling thing. Yeah.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Go out and watch the local band playing at the bar. There's playlists on Spotify, and these guys can buy into these playlists, and you can stumble across some of it that way. But the best way to find new music is to go listen to that guitarist, that singer-songwriter that's playing at your local bar.
Do your musicians, do they really want to make the national scene? Are they just cool, like, yeah, I just want to be Connecticut, I'm recording, I'm having a good time, I got my day job, everything's wonderful? Maybe they don't, maybe it's what they do full time. Or they're like, yeah, this is it, man, we're gonna, this record's gonna, make the top 40 or whatever. Like, do you have a little bit of both of those?
There's a little bit of both. I think the common mindset, and this is a big misconception about musicians, is they're not all in it to be rich and famous. And you can't be, because such a small percentage actually make it to that point.
Sure.
These guys love what they do. These guys and girls are amazing songwriters, and they just want to share that.
Yeah.
And they will share that in whatever capacity they can. Now, that being said, they need to eat just like the rest of us.
Sure.
So they also try to monetize and create income streams with their music however they can. But not to the extent, I mean, they're not hauling in six figures playing clubs. They're getting by and paying their rent.
Yeah.
And they're as happy as can be because they're getting by and they're paying their rent doing what they love to do. And what they love to do happens to be music. For some people it's working in a chemistry lab, and for others it's being a police officer. For these guys it's making music.
How do they, what's a better way for a musician to make money? Is it playing live gigs?
Yes. It's all about gigs, because you make nothing on royalties. Yeah. Spotify pays something like 3 cents or something like that for a stream. It could be even less than that. I mean, it's you're not going to make any money there unless you are generating millions and millions and millions.
Anybody buy CDs anymore?
Yes, not in mass quantity.
Like, there's no CD stores.
No, it's gig based. So when you're playing out wherever you're playing and you've got your merch table set up, people buy CDs there because it's still a great impulse buy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's live gigs. It's live gigs, writing. So writing music for other people or writing music to be used for commercials.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
that's a great way for musicians to make a little bit of extra money. And it's playing gigs you wouldn't necessarily think to play. So I have a couple of artists that play residential facilities for folks that need permanent care. That play recovery facilities, that play, these places you wouldn't think to.
Yeah.
But they've carved out a niche doing some of that because they can make, a couple $100 for a couple hours of work.
What's the best way for a musician to really market themselves? Because they have content, right? Because
Sure.
they just make content for a living. That's what they do.
Yep.
So how would you, what advice would you have for a musician who might be listening here is like, all right, I'm a new musician. I'm trying to break into the scene. I got some tracks recorded wherever doesn't matter where they did it. How would they brand them? What's the best way to brand themselves? What's the way to market themselves?
Yep.
What kind of advice do you have?
So first of all, be prepared for a long road.
Okay.
Because it's
Patience.
a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
Right. So part of that task is establishing your brand as a musician. Who are you and what are you about? What are you posting on your Instagram page? What are you posting on your Facebook page? Stay away from politics unless politics are your thing.
Okay.
If you're a band like Anti-Flag, you're going to talk about politics.
Sure.
But otherwise, be careful, because whatever political statement you make in your music is going to appeal to one group of people and push away another group of people. So from a marketing perspective, do you want to do that?
That's almost like any other business, though, I
Sure.
guess, right? I mean, it just market yourself the way any other business would market yourself.
And you have to approach it that way.
If you're into politics and that's sort of your thing and whatever, fine, that's great. But if you're not, probably,
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone, right? Yeah, if you're into and be yourself, don't be somebody you're not, right? This is your music, this is who you are. And really, I guess for musicians too, it's like they live their music, right? I would think.
Yep.
Right? Because they're writing songs and that has to have some sort of a personal experience in there. So.
Absolutely. And as a musician, you have to understand and be prepared. If you were going to make a run at being a musician as your number one income stream, you have to spend some money to make some money. So researching and finding a good PR company that also does social media management that you can contract to help you promote your release is a great investment. You know, you don't need to spend 10 grand to make a record in a studio anymore. So spend $5,000 or $3,000 and make your record, and then spend $1,500 or $2,000 on a great PR campaign.
Nice.
Stay away from pay for streams or pay for clicks. Generally, those are short-lived. Those fake profiles get deleted, and then your followers drop. If you want to get picked up by a label, you have to show the label, look, I've built myself.
Yeah.
All I need you to do is provide the funding to get me on tour.
Yeah. So it's really, it's patience. It's just every day.
Yep.
Like you're doing, like you get up every morning, you kind of, you know, you open up the paper.
Yep.
Right. And you see what's out there, and you just, it's every day. You just keep moving forward one step at a time.
A great example, if you want to see a band doing it right, there's a Connecticut-based band called Half-Hearted.
Okay.
These guys have been at it for a few years. The lead singer, his name is Sean Dalkey. He also owns a studio in Connecticut in Wolcott.
Okay.
Great guy. That band is doing things the right way. He is 100% keyed in and focused on what is the brand of that band, what kind of music do they want to put out. They put out music videos that are done well.
Yeah.
Their studio albums sound great. They get a lot of press. Their latest single was just debuted. I think it was Kerrang, which is a huge, for rock music, a very influential, I think it's a magazine. But they have a huge online presence. So he's always out there looking for what gigs can I book, what productive gigs can I book, who can I get to interview the band?
Yeah.
How can we promote each of these singles? What's our release plan? What are we going to release and when and why? If you check out their socials and you follow their trajectory a little bit, that's marketing done right. And they're getting national airplay on FM radio stations.
That's awesome.
Because they've built up an organic fan
What's
base.
What's the name of their? Say the name.
Half-Hearted.
Half-Hearted.
Yeah.
So what's their? What are they? Rock? What do they do?
They're rock. They're rock fused with pop.
Obviously original.
Yeah, it's all original. They're rock with a lot of pop, alt pop type elements built in.
Cool.
Amazing guitar work, incredible vocals.
Nice.
Metal fans will love it. Pop fans will love it.
Nice.
They kind of fuse the genres. They have a very
check 'em
unique
out.
and original sound.
I'll definitely have to check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what about videos?
Sure.
Since that's what I do. What about video? Like, what's important for a band to have? Is it a live show? You know what? You know, you go on YouTube and I want to check out a band. I go, they got some live. Mm-hmm. It's always horrific.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like it's a phone or maybe not. Maybe it's a camera. But what gets me now, especially now, you see a lot of videos, just people on Facebook and whatever they're doing, just people trying to promote their business. They have this nice little setup and it actually looks visually decent, but then you can't hear them. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. But if you're trying to listen to a band, I think it is super important. If you're going to do even a cell phone video, try to get a good recording.
You have to get a good recording.
You've got to get a good recording.
It's crucial because as a band, if you think about our social media sites that we use, none of them are sound-based. It's all visual.
That's right.
Right? So as a band, you need to invest in well-done video.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean you need a music video for every song? No. But if you're going to do a release and you're going to drop a single monthly, you should have, at the very least, a well-done lyric video to go with that. Because when people search for that song, you don't want the first thing to pop up to be the person that held their cell phone up over the crowd and took a video of your live show.
Yeah, no.
You don't want that to be people's first impression of you.
No.
So putting together a great video as a live concert is a good idea. Putting together a 60-second video like you do for many businesses is a good idea for musicians.
Like an EPK, right? What is it called?
Press kit. Electronic press kit.
Press kit, right? You do a little interview with the band.
Yep.
Maybe you get some footage of some live shows, a couple different shows, and then you overdub or underdub or anyway, you add the music underneath.
Yep.
Of their going throughout and change it up every once in a while. I think that's huge, and it doesn't have to be a 5, 6, 7 minute thing. I mean, it can be a 60, 90 second piece. And you hear some music, you see them, you get the idea, and I I don't see a lot of those for bands.
They're not doing them.
I think that's a great idea.
Well, and if you think about when you're sending a press kit to a club because you want to play there, right? You're sending a press kit to the Webster Theater. if you send them an email saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, here's 3 of our songs. They've already gotten 100 of those in their inbox that week. If you send them a video and say, this is an introduction of who we are and what we do. Number one, it's video. So whoever's looking at it is already going to be piqued. Their interest is piqued because it's a video.
Sure.
So they're going to click on it. And you've got about 60 seconds to make that impression. Yeah. And a video is going to do that in ways that a standard press kit can't.
Yeah. Because they'll be able to see, okay, because it's for them, I would think for a live venue, it's more than the music, right? They have to have some sort of a presence.
Yeah, you got to put on a good show.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. And if you can show that, be like, oh, all right, yeah, these guys are, look, the crowd is awesome. They got a good presence. They're out there. They're interacting.
Yep.
You got to show all of that kind of stuff. And since that's the way for bands to make their money, that's what you should be marketing. I think maybe more than. I don't want to say more than the music, but it has to be at least.
It's got to be the same importance.
Yeah, same importance. Absolutely.
You've got to have good music or you have nothing.
Yeah.
But once you've got good music, you've got to put it out there in a way that's going to grab people's attention. So if you can buy an Instagram ad and actually have a video that plays, or if you want to buy some YouTube advertisements, you need a video and it needs to look good and it needs to sound good. Those are going to help you break into the regional level in a way that you're not going to do it with, an email, some MP3s, and a couple pictures.
Yeah. What are your top 3 venues to listen to music? Whether it be a full-on theater type place or a club. What are your top 3? Do you have any?
I've always got a soft spot for the Webster in Hartford. Yeah. I went to shows there as a kid, and as a teenager growing up. They've redone recently the sound systems in the venue. It's still a great spot. So I've got a soft spot for the Webster. I've also got a soft spot. There's a spot in New Haven called Musical Intervention.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful place with a great vision. It's run by a guy named Adam Christofferson, and he helps people heal through music. Part of what he does there is he's got a great live concert venue. They do an open mic on Thursdays, which is a great spot to test out new music. And as far as we were talking about where to listen to new music, that's an open mic's a great place to do that.
Okay. How does an open mic work for those that aren't familiar, whether it be a musician or somebody or just a fan?
Yeah, so an open mic is essentially exactly what it sounds like, an open mic. Anybody can go up and perform. You would typically arrive at the venue, depending on how busy the open mic is.
There's no call-aheads. First come, first serve?
Typically not. Okay. Some venues that host open mics, if the turnout is a little spotty, or if they just want to guarantee that they're going to have a decent audience, they will have somebody host the open mic, which would be a solo artist or a musician that has a decent following on their own. And that musician will play a couple of songs, and then they'll keep a running list of people that have checked in that want to perform.
Gotcha.
They'll let you go up, do a song or two. As a musician, it's a great place to test out new material before you bring it to a concert stage. And as a listener, you just get to hear a whole bunch of really cool different stuff in one venue.
Yeah. And this venue, you like it.
I love it. Yeah. I think it's great. It's got a really cool vibe when you walk in.
Where in New Haven?
It's on Temple Street.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. There's a parking garage right above it.
So it's right
downtown.
Right downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep. So that would be my number 2. And then I'm also a little partial to Cafe 9, which is also in New Haven.
We were just there.
Yeah.
We were just at Cafe 9.
Great spot to check out bands.
I shot some video there for artist guy I work with. It was great.
Yeah.
It's just a fun. It sounds really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds really good.
I don't know why it sounds so good, but it sounds really
great
good.
Vibe. Yeah. And they bring in good musicians.
They do. Yeah. Yeah, they really do. I was there. Who was playing? They had I think it was a father-daughter guitar players.
Okay.
And they went back and forth. It was kind of folky, kind of rock and roll. It was really, really nice. Drummer, upright bass.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, I was like, wow. We were on our way to, what were we doing? I don't know what we're doing down there. I think we're on our way to another show. And we stopped in there first. And so we made a whole day. It was great. They were open. They were playing. It was like early. It was like 4 PM or something crazy.
That's what's great about that place is they start gigs early enough where those of us that don't want to go see a show at 10 o'clock at night, can go and catch one.
Which is, that's, I think I fall into that category.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's funny. Yes, yeah. When I was younger, shows, you go to a show, it doesn't start till 10.
Right.
You know?
And that's when the opening band goes
Yeah,
on.
that's when the opening band goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long night. But yeah, I love Cafe 9. So that would be, I don't know what my top, I do jazz, right? So there's this place in Old Lyme, Side Door.
Okay.
So if you want to check out a really cool jazz venue, I mean, these guys did it right. So it's attached to the Old Lyme Inn.
Ah.
And it's just called the Side Door because it's on the side.
The side door. Yeah.
And you walk in, and it's all done in like kind of like red and black, so it's really it's like that cranberry, right?
The color that yeah, there you go. I would love that place.
Yeah, you would love it. And it's super intimate. I'm like, you're like this to the band. I mean, you're right there. First show I saw there was great, now I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. Jazz organ player. Oh, geez Louise. Anyway, I'll think of it. But it was absolutely, the sound is killer. So you go in, you can have a little meal or something at the inn. Then you go into the theater, and they play for a little bit. And what's really cool is that there's like no backstage, they come out, so they got to walk through the audience.
Yeah.
And then during the break, they come out, and you kind of chill with them. And then they do merch outside, and just a very cool venue. So that's got to be one of my top in the state. Yeah. Very, very cool place. Side Door, Old Lyme. It's going to drive me crazy now with this. It'll come to me anyway. So that's cool. So live music is where to go for bands as far as really getting their sound out and marketing.
Yeah.
You got to make this circuit. Do all your musicians, clients, I guess, what do you call them? Clients, customers, clients?
Yeah,
whatever?
customers, clients, yeah.
Do they all do live? Do they all play live?
Most of them do.
Okay.
The ones that don't as much are the pop and hip hop guys.
Joey DiFrancesco.
That's the one.
Yeah,
See? It was
Joey.
It was gonna come.
All right, Joey DiFrancesco. Yeah, awesome. Listening for years. Anyway, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So for them, I think the venues are a little more limited.
Okay.
They also, the rappers that I work with are very focused on writing. They write, they release constantly. I have one rapper that's going to put out 4 full albums this year.
Wow.
Just because he's got so much content.
Yeah.
So for him, he's getting it all recorded. He's getting ready to release it. He's getting some spaces lined up to start performing, but he's not playing out 3 nights a week like a lot of the bands are.
Yeah. So that's what bands do. I mean, a lot of these guys, it's constant every week they're out.
They're out gigging because there's not a lot of rock radio stations anymore.
Yeah, no, there's not.
So, even in the streaming world, there's nowhere near as many rock playlists as there are pop and rap playlists.
Yeah.
So if they want to get recognition, it's going to be in front of a live audience.
Yeah. You know what I've noticed? We just went to see Lettuce. There's this there's funk. So funk is I don't know. And then there's this band called Galactica. I just on Spotify. And then there's other couple bands, really not rock, but there's a sort of weird sort of funk, maybe folksy sort of vibe happening I've noticed, which has been very cool.
Yeah.
So there's been that shift. There's this other band that they were out of, I thought they might have been actually Connecticut, but maybe not. They broke up now. I can't think of their name either. It's been a while. But there is some. I think you're right. I think finding new music too is turn off the radio.
Yep.
Right, and even if you know of a band that you kind of like, this is what I've done. I plug it into Spotify, and I go to their radio station, right? Because that's where Spotify, I'm not really sure how it works, and that's where they throw in kind of stuff that might be similar.
Yeah.
That's how I discovered like Lettuce and Galactic and all these kind of obscure bands. But Lettuce just played, and that's who we went to see. Lettuce just played in New Haven. At
really?
College Street? Love that. So that's one of my favorite venues.
That's a great spot too.
I went to college at Southern Connecticut, and it used to be the Palace Theater.
Yeah.
I went there umpteen times. So closed down, whatever it was. And now years later, here we are. Now it's College Street. Nothing's changed. Exactly the same.
Same
theater.
as it was. Yeah.
Sounds phenomenal.
Yep.
Yeah, great theater. So we had a good time there. Yeah.
I think they might have ownership ties with Toads now.
Oh, no kidding.
I thought I had heard that somewhere. I could be completely wrong and off base, and I'm sure somebody listening will tell me if I am.
Yeah.
Either that or they share a booking agent.
How's Toads doing? I've been there in forever. Are they still killing it?
I was just there.
'Cause I don't hear
November,
anything
I went
about
there
them.
for a concert, so they're still alive and kicking. They're bringing in some great bands.
Good.
It's an iconic venue. If you
It
live in
really is.
Connecticut, you need to go to a Toads show at least once because the history in that building is just
Oh, it's amazing.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was just there in November. They've got the Lily Pad upstairs, which is a
Yep.
little smaller
Yep.
venue. They're doing really well with. They host emo nights every once in a while.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Right, so they'll bring in these DJs that set up on stage and play. Everybody who's in their late 20s and 30s now loved this stuff in high school.
Yeah.
And the difference is that we have money now, whereas we didn't when we were in high school.
Sure.
So they host these emo nights where they'll bring 500 people or 1,000 people, and they'll run some drink specials, and it's just a big party.
And it's still open, right? They don't have any seats. I mean, they have some tables and stuff around, but
Yeah,
right
no,
in
it's
front of
open.
the stage, it's all
wide
it's
open.
all open. Yeah. No, I love that venue. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to go back there.
Yeah, it's a great spot. It really. We're very lucky in Connecticut. We have such an eclectic mix of really awesome venues.
Yeah.
A lot of my artists have been playing at the Cellar on Treadwell,
Okay.
which is in Hamden. It's the old. There used to be a venue called the Space that was there.
Okay.
For years and years and
Been
years.
to the Space. Space was now it's still functioning, but it's
Still
not-
functioning.
Good,
Called the
that's
Cellar on Treadwell.
That's
They've
good to
got
hear.
a great bar, awesome food. The owner is amazing to the bands. He takes great care of them. He put in a phenomenal sound system.
So this is a different owner because there was
Different owner.
There was the Space and the outer space. Was
Yeah,
is
they
that-
were owned by
that-
the same guy.
Same thing. So it was the same building or two different buildings?
Two different buildings, but in the
Okay.
same complex,
Same
essentially.
complex. Okay.
That's, you know what? That's the tie I'm thinking of. The outer space is now owned by the people that have College Street. It's not Toads. It's
Okay.
the outer
So
space.
is it still
That's
the outer space?
I believe they still call it. It's either the Spaceland or the Spaceland Ballroom. It's a different. They're two separate venues now.
Which is the smaller one, right?
The Space, or the Cellar on Treadwell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
is
then,
that where you walk in? There's a place, and there's a stage, and then there's another stage in the back.
Nope. That's what used to be the outer space and the Spaceland Ballroom. Those are both still
Okay. the outer
functioning, but I don't know what they call them now.
space. Okay.
But it's the same spaces.
Okay. That's okay. That's the place I've been. I haven't been to the other one. All right. That's where I've been.
Yeah. So,
Cool.
so just we're very lucky. We've got a lot of awesome venues, which is
Yeah.
why
We
it
do.
kills me that people don't go to live concerts at these
Yeah.
places anymore.
Yeah, there is. If you think about it, we just rattled off more than a handful
Oh yeah.
of really good, whether it be small clubs or larger venues, and then you got the Infinity. I don't know what's going on with the Infinity. I've seen some really good shows there. I was just there for something. It was a pretty packed house. We went to see, which I never thought I would go see, Carly Simon.
Oh really?
So we went to see. This was a couple of years ago. She was in town, and I woke up. It was a Sunday. I think it was a Sunday. Yeah, it was a Sunday. I woke up Sunday morning, and I see Carly Simon's coming to town. My wife is a fan.
Sure.
And yeah, I listen to her music and stuff. So like, all right, let me go. Let me get tickets. So I go on, and I'm like, wow, like 5 rows back, like on the floor, like just off center.
Yeah.
I was like, so I bought the tickets. I was like, this is gonna be great. So we go, and I don't know who dropped the ball, but the place was like empty. I mean, there was nobody there. There was a handful. I don't even know if there was 100 people there. Hopefully there was. I don't remember. It was a while ago, but she probably put on one of the best performances that I have really ever seen. I mean, just the back and forth. It was her. She had like a percussion guy over here doing some other stuff. She had like a guitar guy over here doing some stuff, bass, whatever. She had a piano in the back. She went back, did some piano songs. But there was that communication back and forth constantly throughout the whole night. I mean,
Yeah.
I was, me being a sort of a real visual, kind of guy, I was really watching that. I was just fascinated with the back and forth. And she even brought it up that she really wasn't happy with the turnout. But, she didn't say like this sucks or anything, but, you could tell like she was a little disappointed that there weren't more people there. But it didn't matter. She's like, I'm still going to give you a killer show. And she really did. So that was cool to see her play that at that level with that sort of improv and back and forth and communicating. It was cool watching her communicate, right?
Yeah.
It's cool watching musicians communicate. They sort of, they don't have to say anything, right? They sort of look.
Oh yeah.
and
There's
they-
a
and they
look
make
you
that-
give
they-
the
and
drummer.
they make that change or whatever it is. Yeah. So that was what was going on.
I used to
It
get a
was
lot
fun.
of looks from the guitar players in my band when I was the drummer.
Oh really?
Yeah, they weren't always necessarily good ones, but I
Okay.
got a lot of looks.
That's funny.
You can communicate an awful lot
Yeah.
with a certain kind of glance.
Yeah. That's awesome. So that's one of the things I really like about watching a live show is that sort of how do they feed off each other, how they communicate with each other. how they do that. That's what kind of grabs me about a live show. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and for these bands, when they get an audience in front of them of people that want to hear their music, or if they're playing a bar, even people that don't want to hear their music but don't have a choice because they're there.
Yeah.
They open it. It's like a whole different level that they go to in terms of showmanship and performance.
Absolutely.
You got to see it. Like I can't even capture it on a record. It's just the way, and the John Spignesi band is a phenomenal example of this. I mean, these guys are playing everywhere.
Yeah.
They just played the Woodstock reunion at Yasgur's Farm. They've been on it. They're playing
because they're really out there pushing. I see them. They're popping up. They're pushing, but they have the chops behind it. They're good.
So good.
Yeah, they're good.
And I am very lucky. John actually comes in as a studio musician and does some guitar work for some of my other acts. When you need a solo, there's nobody else to call. He's the man.
Awesome.
And Matt, their drummer, the guy just functions musically at a different level than the rest of us.
Cool.
I mean, he can play any genre, any style. Amazing drummer, great guy. You know, there's no. Some of these musicians, when you actually get a chance to meet them and talk to them, like there's nobody else I'd rather support.
Yeah.
And that's why I love what I get to do in the Connecticut music scene, and I love what I have been able to do with Acetone and the vision that my wife and I had and that we've been able to put together, in the way that we can help musicians. I mean, they're such great people.
Yeah.
And being
do you
able
try to get to a lot of? Do you try to get to their shows as much as you can?
I try to go to every.
You can't get to all of them, but yeah.
I try to go to all like the album release shows when they do them. I try to get to, but the blessing and the curse is that we're getting so busy, which is fantastic.
Sure.
That it's getting harder and harder to get to some of those shows.
Yeah.
But I try to go to everything I can for these guys.
Good. Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's important to show that, because there is, if you really think about it, man, there's some really good music in this state, you know.
Yep.
And that must be cool to be a part of it and kind of see it growing. Has it grown? How much is that growing? You've been at Acetone for 4 years. I know you've been doing this a lot longer than that, but so Acetone has been kicking for 4 years. Mm-hmm. How has the scene either grown or changed in those 4 years?
I think what we have seen is, because of the availability of smaller venues and open mics, we are seeing a lot of singer-songwriters that have never considered actually taking their stuff and playing live in front of anybody or putting records together. Not to use an old expression, but they're coming out of the woodwork.
Okay.
I have two different teachers. One of them just finished an album. The other one is making an album. And they're teachers. That's their day job.
Yeah.
But they're putting together these albums because they love music and they love writing. So I think that I've seen growth in that part of the Connecticut scene. It's a very welcoming scene, so it's easy to find places to play, which is helping bring some of these people out. I think we've seen a lot of expansion in the country scene in Connecticut. That's gotten bigger noticeably over the last 3-4 years I've had the studio open. And that jam scene, the jam bands, you know, the Brotherhood Funk Band, John Spignesi Band.
Brotherhood Funk Band. I'll check them out.
Oh, they're good. Yeah, they're real good.
That sounds good.
You know, these guys are putting on these amazing shows, incredibly talented musicians. I don't remember seeing a ton of that in years past.
Okay.
But that's really coming back.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of growth. You know, people like to say the Connecticut music scene sucks and you know, nobody goes to shows in Connecticut. And I think not enough people go to shows in Connecticut, but the music scene here is vibrant and awesome. And
I think you just got to go. You just got to, like, don't even look at who's playing.
Just go.
Just go.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, you know this venue, okay, there's a show tonight at Friday, I'm going to go.
Right.
Spend some time and have a couple drinks and listen to this band. You never know. You might get surprised, and most likely you will be surprised by these guys are actually really good. Yeah. But you got to go to a venue that has a good sound system. I saw John Spignesi I'm not going to mention the name, because we've talked about it.
Yep.
So I'm not going to mention the name, but I really wanted to stay, and my wife, too, really wanted to stay, because they were jamming there, but the sound system in this place was horrific. And it was overdriven, and you couldn't enjoy it, because it hurt. It was one of those deals where it's like, it hurt. Like, it wasn't, not that because it was too loud, it's just, it wasn't pleasing to the ear. So any venues out there, you want to do some music, please invest decent sound system. I think that's super important.
Doesn't have to be crazy expensive. Just make sure you get a guy that knows how to run it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's the key. Bands like the John Spignesi band, these jam bands, these solo artists, they're all about creating an experience. They know that. So when you get an audience in front of them and a sound system that sounds good, if you're a venue owner and you bring in a band that's going to draw 25, 30, 40 people, you put up a decent drink special, you're going to have a great night as a venue owner.
Yeah.
You know, it's for venue owners, really look for original bands. Because there was a lawsuit recently. Can't remember the name of the establishment now, but they're actually getting sued because they had bands playing cover songs there, but they weren't paying royalties to BNI and ASCAP, which are the two unions in the music industry.
So if you're a venue and you had a cover band come in,
you could be liable if you didn't pay royalties. Yeah.
You got to pay royalties for the cover band performing live music. It's not recorded; they're actually performing it.
Yeah.
Is that something new?
Well, I don't think it's particularly new. I just don't think it was ever really enforced.
Okay.
And out of nowhere, this club got hit with this lawsuit from I can't remember now if it was BMI or ASCAP or both. But but essentially they're facing legal challenges now because they had bands playing cover songs and they didn't pay the royalties for the right to have that song being played in their establishment.
What would the royalty fee be if they're going to play, a band's going to play, I don't know, Dave Matthews, some song from Dave Matthews? I mean, obviously it probably varies, but what would be the standard, sir? What would a venue? I
don't think it's anything crazy. I think that if there is a standard rate for it, I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Okay.
But they could reach out to BMI or ASCAP and find out.
Okay.
Both of those organizations are very good. If you contact them, they'll get answers back to you quickly.
So this be something that, what if you have an original band and they're jamming and say, hey, we're going to do a Dave Matthews song for you. So could you go to BMI after the fact that, hey, listen, there's a band in here, they do originals, but did this one cover?
Yeah, you could. And if it's one song, it's probably not really going to get you in any hot water. Okay. But if it's happening consistently.
But it's when you continually bring in the cover bands.
Right.
That's when you're going to get into trouble.
You could potentially. And this one instance is the first I've heard of it. So I don't know if something changed or if they're just looking for it now. Okay. And in the end, it's meant to help the musicians that they're covering. I mean, if you're a cover band and you make your living playing other people's music and you get paid for it, you know, there's part of me that's like, all right, well,
yeah, it's not your music, you're playing it, but maybe the guys who wrote it should get a little
something,
get a little piece of that.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I see that.
But bringing in original bands is a good way to get around that, not have to worry about that.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. And there's some good original music. I mean, there really is, and you know, kids, the guys, the people that are playing this music now, they've been around. There's so much history now with starting just at the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. You know, there's so much music, and it's changed so much, progressed so much through those decades, that they have such a backlog of really teachers that they can listen to, put on a CD or a record and listen, and kind of, you know, and then even going back farther than that. So there's so much these kids are growing up, man, and they're amazing musicians out there. Yep. It's like they've been playing for years.
And that breaks a common misconception too. The common misconception today is, because it's pretty common knowledge of what we can do with computers in the recording world, there's this thought that, well, you know, these young kids don't have to know how to play their instruments. But that's really not true. I can't take a god-awful guitar player and make him sound good.
Right.
I can take a great guitar player and help him sound a little better as far as his tones go. But if the guy can't write or can't play a solo, there's nothing I can do to magically make him write or play a solo.
Yep, absolutely.
Same thing with singers. You know, there's pitch correction and auto-tune and all this stuff, but a singer's still got to be a decent singer that can enunciate words properly and can form good melodies. You know, all that stuff isn't created with computers. It's created by the person that writes it.
Again, the computer and all that's just another tool.
That's all it is. It's a tool in the toolbox.
It's just a tool in the toolbox, another tool in the toolbox to help these musicians do something a little different, try to develop a new sound. But ultimately, you're right. It's still about, you know, the artist, the musician playing and writing good material.
Well, a great example of that is if you think about pitch correction, if you think of that T-Pain sound, you know, that auto-tune sound, you know, where it sounds almost electronic. If you're a singer it's not just that you sing and magically that happens when you put it through the software. You have to know how that software is going to act on your vocal and sing in a way that triggers the software in a way that you want it to.
Interesting.
That in its own really is an art form.
That's interesting.
So to say that, kids today don't have to know how to play their instruments, or you can make a drum track on a computer. Yeah, you can, but now there's people that have the creative ability, not being drummers, to create a drum track on a computer. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How many people could do that 30 years ago?
Yeah.
20 years
True.
ago?
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, it's awesome. So I think we're at a good point. We can wrap this up.
Cool.
I learned a lot about the music industry. I'm really glad I had you in, man. We could go on a little bit more, but I don't know how long we've been going here. But before we wrap it up, let the world know how, or Connecticut, how they can get a hold of you.
So the best way to find us, we've got a website set up at acetoneproductions.com. You can also find us on Facebook, same thing, searching Acetone Productions, or if you do a search in Google, we'll come up, Acetone Productions. We've got many different ways to contact us. You could call us. You can email us. Whatever is convenient for you as an artist. We'd love to have you down, show you our space, talk to you about your projects, and help you with whatever you're looking to achieve.
Awesome. Remember, folks, so it's Acetone. So Ace because they're great at what they do, Tone because that's what they work with, and Productions because that's what they make. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. And your space is very cool. So yeah, artists out there. Go check out Acetone and Matt. Oh shoot, TERRIBILE.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right on, Matt TERRIBILE. Yeah, so check him out. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. This wraps up our 8th episode of Behind the Brand. Be sure to check us out every Monday morning on YouTube, and we're up there on Spotify and Apple, podcast, whatever it is. So please check us out. Matt, again, thanks so much for having being on the show, man. It was good to have you.
Dave, thanks for having me. It was great.
Cool. See you.